Listen carefully. People like you don't belong in places like this. The hotel manager's voice sliced through the marble lobby of the Lakeside Grand Hotel like a knife. Robert Caldwell stood over Tasha Reynolds, who had just accidentally bumped her cleaning cart into an expensive briefcase. "Do you see these guests?" Caldwell gestured toward the international visitors in designer suits. "They pay more for one night than you make in a month." He grabbed the briefcase and held it up for everyone to see. "This costs more than your entire yearly salary." Caldwell then picked up napkins from Tasha's cart and threw them at her feet. "Here, practice cleaning up your own messes before you touch anything that matters." The lobby fell silent. Guests stared. Other staff whispered and smirked. Tasha bent down to collect the scattered napkins, her face burning. This same woman would answer one phone call that would save a $50 million deal. Have you ever seen someone get destroyed right before they became the hero? The executive floor hummed with tension. CEO David Morgan paced frantically in the glass-walled conference room. International flags stood arranged around a mahogany table set for 12. "Nakamura-san, please don't hang up." Morgan pressed his phone closer to his ear. "Our interpreter is stuck in traffic. Just give me a little more time, I promise." The Japanese voice on the other end grew sharp and frustrated. Morgan winced, understanding none of it, but recognizing anger in any language. "I'm sorry. I don't understand Japanese. Please, just give me—" The line went dead. Morgan stared at his phone in horror. This wasn't just any deal. The global partnership agreement with 6 countries would transform his company overnight. $50 million and 3 years of negotiations were crumbling because of one missing interpreter. "Get them back on the line," Morgan barked at his assistant. "This deal closes at the deadline." He rushed out to find someone, anyone who could help. Behind him, the conference room's speakerphone sat active, forgotten in his panic. Down the hallway, Tasha pushed her cart toward the executive floor. The napkin incident still stung, but she had work to finish. She entered the empty conference room to collect trash bins. The phone rang. Tasha froze, looking around the empty room. Should she answer or find someone else? The voice that came through the speaker was desperate, rapid Japanese that made her heart skip. "Hello, is anyone there? We have an urgent problem with the contract. This is our final attempt. If no one can discuss the cultural protocol issue immediately, we're withdrawing from the partnership." The voice was about to hang up. Tasha could hear it in the tone. She stared at the blinking phone line. 15 years of invisible preparation had led to this exact moment. Her grandmother's voice echoed in her mind. "When that moment comes, don't let fear make you invisible too." The phone continued ringing. Any second now, $50 million would walk away. What would you do if everything depended on one choice and you were the only person in the room? Her hand trembled as she reached for the speaker button. 1 breath, 2 breaths. "Hello, this is the Lakeside Grand Hotel. I apologize deeply for keeping you waiting. How may I assist you?" The words flowed out in perfect Japanese, every honorific precisely placed. Dead silence stretched across the phone line. Who is this?" The Japanese executive's voice carried pure amazement. "Your Japanese is extraordinary. Even the formal business protocols are flawless. My name is Tasha. I understand you have urgent concerns about the partnership agreement." While she spoke, memories flashed like lightning. 8-year-old Tasha watching Japanese cartoons, writing down every subtitle. 16-year-old Tasha working nights at her aunt's international boarding house, helping confused foreign students navigate American bureaucracy. 25-year-old Tasha studying language apps during cleaning breaks, dreaming of conversations exactly like this one. "Miss Tasha, we have a very serious cultural problem," the executive continued in rapid Japanese. "The contract language uses casual terms instead of respectful business language. In Japan, this suggests your company views us as inferior partners, not equals." Tasha's eyes widened. This wasn't just translation, this was cultural diplomacy. "I sincerely apologize for this oversight. This was clearly unintentional disrespect caused by translation errors. Can you specify exactly which terms created this impression?" The executive launched into detailed explanations, contract clauses, cultural nuances, business relationships built on mutual respect spanning decades, not just quarterly profits. "I believe I understand completely," Tasha responded, switching between formal and casual Japanese seamlessly. "Would you be willing to remain on the line while I locate Mr. Morgan? He needs to understand this cultural context directly." "Miss Tasha, are you the cultural consultant for this partnership?" Tasha paused. The truth felt impossible to explain. I work here at the hotel. Your understanding of international business protocol is exceptional. Please find Mr. Morgan immediately. We trust your judgment. Tasha grabbed the mobile phone connection and ran down the hallway, her cleaning uniform suddenly feeling like armor instead of shame. Mr. Morgan, she called out. The Japanese partners are still connected. Morgan spun around the corner, face flushed with panic. Thank God. Are they willing to continue negotiations? Yes, but there's a critical cultural misunderstanding in the contract language that needs immediate attention. Morgan stopped running. His eyes narrowed with confusion. How do you know what they're saying? Tasha handed him the phone. I've been translating for the past 10 minutes. They're waiting to speak with you directly. Morgan stared at her like she'd just spoken in tongues. You speak Japanese fluently, but you're... He caught himself mid-sentence, decades of assumptions crashing into reality. The cleaning lady who just saved your $50 million deal. Yes. Morgan took the phone with hands that shook slightly. Through the speaker, patient Japanese voices waited for leadership that finally understood what respect actually meant. For 15 years, Tasha had been a ghost in these hallways. Invisible hands that emptied trash and mopped floors while million-dollar conversations happened around her. But languages had always seen her, and today they spoke back. Mr. Morgan, she said quietly, they're not just buying your product. They're evaluating whether your company understands honor. In Japanese business culture, how you treat people matters more than what you sell them. Morgan looked at the phone, then at Tasha, then back at the phone. Will you help me save this? I already started. Sometimes your greatest strength isn't on your resume. Sometimes it's who you really are when nobody important is watching. Walking back to the conference room, Morgan couldn't stop staring at Tasha. The woman he'd passed in hallways for 15 years suddenly felt like a complete stranger. I have to ask, Morgan paused at the conference room door. Where did you learn business Japanese? That level of fluency, it's incredible, the question everyone always avoided asking. The story nobody thought to wonder about. Foster care, Tasha said simply. 3 different families, 3 different languages spoken at home. Images flashed through her mind like old photographs. 6-year-old Tasha with Rosa, her Spanish-speaking foster mother, learning to negotiate between English school teachers and Spanish-speaking parents at PTA meetings. 10-year-old Tasha with Mr. Pham, her Vietnamese foster father, translating customer complaints at his struggling restaurant after school every day. 14-year-old Tasha with Grandma Lena, her Polish foster grandmother, reading letters from cousins in Warsaw, helping fill out immigration paperwork for other elderly Polish neighbors. Each family taught me something different, Tasha continued. Rosa taught me that language is survival. Mr. Pham taught me that language is respect. Grandma Lena taught me that language is memory. Morgan shook his head in wonder. But business Japanese, that's incredibly advanced. When you clean office buildings for 15 years, you hear everything. Tasha smiled slightly. International conference calls, failed negotiations, deals falling apart because nobody understood what the other side actually needed. She paused at the memory of countless nights spent studying. I started learning because I was curious why some conversations built bridges and others burned them down. YouTube University became my graduate school, library books, language apps during break times. Her voice grew quieter. I thought maybe someday I could help, but I never imagined it would be like this. Morgan understood something profound at that moment. Preparation doesn't always look like opportunity. Sometimes it looks like a woman studying languages in empty office buildings at night, dreaming of conversations that seemed impossible. Your grandmother would be proud today. Tasha touched the small pendant at her neck. Grandma Lena's final gift. She always said America was a place where invisible people could become visible. She just never said when. The conference room felt different now, charged with possibility and danger in equal measure. Morgan adjusted his tie and pressed the speaker button. Nakamura-san, I apologize deeply for the cultural miscommunication in our contract. I have Tasha here to help us resolve this properly. The door burst open. Robert Caldwell stood frozen in the doorway, his face contorting as he processed the impossible scene before him. The cleaning lady sitting at the executive conference table during the most important business negotiation in company history. What exactly is the janitor doing in a $50 million business meeting? Caldwell's voice dripped with barely controlled fury. The Japanese voice through the speaker responded before Morgan could answer. "We would like to speak with Miss Tasha directly, please." Caldwell's mouth fell open. Tasha leaned toward the phone, switching effortlessly into formal Japanese. "Nakamura-san, I want to understand your concerns completely. Can you explain exactly which contract terms felt culturally inappropriate?" What followed was rapid, complex Japanese, business terminology mixed with cultural nuances that would challenge professional interpreters. Tasha responded with equal fluency, asking clarifying questions that demonstrated deep understanding of international business protocol. Caldwell stood paralyzed, watching his assumptions crumble in real time. "The problem runs deeper than simple translation errors," Tasha explained to Morgan. "They're saying our contract language positions them as a junior partner receiving assistance instead of an equal partner building something together. In Japanese business culture, that distinction is everything." Morgan nodded gravely. "That's completely opposite of our intentions." Tasha continued in Japanese, asking more detailed questions. The conversation grew animated, not angry but engaged, collaborative. "They also want assurance about our commitment to long-term relationships," Tasha translated. "In Japanese business philosophy, companies focused on quick profits are considered unreliable partners. They're evaluating whether we understand Ningen Kankei, the art of building human relationships in business. So this isn't just about contract language, it's about proving we understand honor." Tasha returned to Japanese, explaining Morgan's company values with cultural context that transformed dry business facts into meaningful relationship-building conversation. Warm Japanese laughter filled the room. "Miss Tasha understands what many Americans miss," the executive said, switching to English. "Business is built on trust. Trust is built on understanding. You have someone very special helping you today." Caldwell stepped closer to the table, his arrogance replaced by something approaching awe. "Mr. Morgan," the Japanese voice continued, "we are very impressed with Miss Tasha's cultural sensitivity. We would like to continue all negotiations with her, providing translation and cultural guidance." Morgan looked at Caldwell, whose face had gone pale. Other employees had gathered outside the glass walls, watching the impossible unfold. "Tasha," Morgan said quietly, "I think we need to talk about your job description." Through the speaker, satisfied Japanese voices continued planning partnership details that moments before had seemed dead in the water. Caldwell sank into a chair, staring at the woman he'd humiliated in the lobby just hours earlier. The woman who was now conducting international diplomacy with more skill than consultants charging thousands per hour. Sometimes expertise wears a uniform nobody expects. The Japanese partners were consulting with their legal team, giving Morgan and Caldwell a moment to process what had just happened. Caldwell pulled Morgan into the hallway, his voice a harsh whisper that carried more venom than volume. "Have you completely lost your mind?" Caldwell's face flushed red. "She's a custodian, David, a janitor. What happens when the board members fly in and see our cleaning lady running international business deals? They'll see someone who just prevented us from losing $50 million. But the liability, the embarrassment," Caldwell's hands gestured wildly. "What if she makes a cultural mistake? What if clients think we're so unprofessional we can't afford real consultants?" Morgan's voice turned ice cold. "The clients think she's more professional than the $500 per hour interpreter we hired. That's not the point." Caldwell stepped closer. "Think about the precedent this sets. What's next? The janitor in accounting meetings? The maintenance guy negotiating contracts?" Down in the hotel lobby, word had spread like wildfire through the staff grapevine. "Tasha's upstairs in the executive conference room," whispered Maria from housekeeping. "Probably got fired for breaking something expensive," laughed Tom from security. "I heard she's actually helping with some big business deal," said Janet from the front desk. Tom snorted. "Right. What would the cleaning lady know about business? She barely finished high school. Maybe we don't know everything about people," Janet replied quietly. "Come on, next you'll tell me she speaks Chinese too." Back on the executive floor, Tasha stood outside the conference room, overhearing Caldwell's increasingly heated objections. "She's a nice woman, David, but she's not qualified for this level of responsibility. What if she says something wrong? What if she misunderstands cultural nuances? Our reputation is on the line." "Your reputation?" Morgan corrected sharply. My reputation is being saved by someone you threw napkins at this morning. The words hit Tasha like physical blows. Maybe Caldwell was right. Maybe she was in over her head. Maybe answering that phone was the biggest mistake of her life. Her phone buzzed. Text message from Morgan. Chinese partners calling in minutes. We need you. Tasha stared at the message. Minutes to decide who she really was. Caldwell's voice drifted through the hallway. Mark my words, this will end in disaster. You can't turn a janitor into a diplomat overnight. The old Tasha would have quietly returned to her cart and disappeared back into invisibility. The safe choice. The expected choice. But Grandma Lena's voice echoed stronger than Caldwell's doubt. When your moment comes, don't let fear make you invisible too. Tasha straightened her shoulders, touched her grandmother's pendant, and walked back into the conference room. Mr. Morgan, she said calmly, I understand Mr. Caldwell's concerns, but those Chinese partners are calling soon, and they're going to ask specific questions about cultural protocol that could make or break this entire deal. She looked directly at Caldwell. I can walk away right now if that makes you more comfortable, or I can help save something that took 3 years to build. Caldwell opened his mouth to respond, but Morgan cut him off. Tasha, we need you. Anyone who has a problem with that can leave. Sometimes courage isn't the absence of doubt, it's acting despite the voices telling you to stay invisible. The conference room screen flickered to life as Chinese partners joined the video call from Beijing. The lead Chinese executive appeared on screen, his expression serious and slightly concerned. He spoke in rapid Mandarin, his tone carrying undertones of worry. We understand there were complications with the Japanese negotiations earlier. Are there similar cultural misunderstandings in our agreement that need addressing? Tasha responded without hesitation, her Mandarin flowing as naturally as breathing. Thank you for your patience, Director Chen. We want to ensure complete cultural alignment. Can you share your specific concerns? Director Chen's eyebrows shot up in surprise. He leaned forward, switching to more complex Mandarin filled with business terminology. Your Mandarin is exceptional. Are you the cultural consultant we requested? I'm here to ensure clear communication and mutual respect between all partners. What followed was an intricate dance of cultural diplomacy. Director Chen explained concepts that went far beyond simple translation, philosophical approaches to business relationships that most American companies never understood. They're discussing Guangxi, Tasha explained to Morgan. It's not just about business partnerships, it's about evaluating the character and long-term thinking of everyone they work with. Morgan leaned forward. What do they want to know? Tasha asked follow-up questions in Mandarin, listening carefully to the responses that grew increasingly detailed and personal. How do you treat your employees? What's your involvement in community development, environmental responsibility, charitable giving? They're not just buying your services, they're evaluating whether this partnership aligns with their core values and reputation. This is about moral alignment. In Chinese business philosophy, who you are as people matters as much as what you can deliver as a company. They want partners who think beyond quarterly profits. The conversation continued. Morgan shared stories about employee scholarship programs, community partnerships, environmental initiatives, all translated by Tasha with cultural context that transformed corporate talking points into meaningful relationship-building dialogue. Director Chen's stern expression gradually softened into something approaching warmth and genuine respect. Miss Tasha's cultural understanding gives us great confidence, he said, switching to English. We rarely encounter Americans who grasp the importance of character in business relationships. This partnership feels different now. The phone rang again. German partners joining from Frankfurt. Guten Morgen, the German voice said tersely. We have urgent questions about environmental sustainability protocols in the contract. Tasha switched seamlessly to German, her accent perfect. Good morning. I'm here to help address any environmental concerns you may have. Wunderbar, the German executive exclaimed. Finally, someone who can discuss technical environmental standards properly. Caldwell stood in the doorway, watching in stunned silence as Tasha managed 3 languages simultaneously, switching between cultural contexts like a conductor orchestrating an international symphony. The German conversation grew technical, carbon footprint calculations, renewable energy protocols, sustainability metrics that exceeded EU requirements. Tasha translated not just words but concepts, ensuring both sides understood precise technical meanings and regulatory compliance. Your environmental commitments exceed our expectations, the German executive concluded. Your consultant understands both the technical requirements and the cultural importance of sustainability leadership in European markets. By now, 3 countries had moved from concern to enthusiasm. Japanese partners praised cultural sensitivity. Chinese executives felt confident about character alignment. German representatives approved technical environmental standards. All because someone finally understood what each culture needed to hear. Morgan looked at the multiple screens showing satisfied international partners. Then at Caldwell, whose resistance was visibly crumbling with each successful exchange. "Tasha," Morgan said quietly, "I think we need to discuss your future here. Value doesn't always announce itself with credentials. Sometimes it whispers in languages nobody thought to ask about." The full international video conference was in session. Japanese, Chinese, and German partners all visible on multiple screens, their faces showing genuine satisfaction and engagement. Morgan cleared his throat and looked directly into the main camera. "Before we proceed to final signatures, I want to formally introduce someone who has been absolutely crucial to today's success." He gestured toward Tasha with unmistakable respect and pride. "This is Tasha Reynolds. Hours ago, she was someone we had shamefully overlooked for 15 years. Today, she has single-handedly saved the most important partnership in our company's history." The Japanese executive leaned forward on screen. "Ms. Reynolds has demonstrated exceptional cultural sensitivity and understanding of international business protocol." The Chinese partner nodded enthusiastically. "Her grasp of relationship-building philosophy is remarkable. We feel truly understood for the first time in these negotiations." The German representative added, "We have rarely encountered such precise technical translation combined with cultural awareness. Ms. Reynolds is extraordinary." Morgan felt a wave of emotion he hadn't expected. Recognition doesn't always come with a promotion or fanfare. Sometimes it comes with a room full of people, both in person and on screens around the world, finally seeing what was always there. "Tasha," Morgan said, turning to face her directly, "I'm creating a new position effective immediately, Director of International Cultural Relations. The compensation will reflect what you're actually worth to this company, not what we ignorantly assumed you were worth." Tasha's eyes filled with tears as she tried to blink them away. "Mr. Morgan, I honestly don't know what to say. Say you'll help us become the kind of company that deserves employees like you. Say you'll help us see people the way you've helped our partners see us." Caldwell stepped forward from the doorway, his face a mixture of shame and newfound respect. "Tasha, I need to say something publicly." His voice carried none of its earlier arrogance. "This morning, I treated you with disrespect based on assumptions about your job title rather than knowledge of your abilities. You handled my ignorance with more grace and professionalism than I deserved." The international partners on screen watched this exchange with obvious approval. "What you accomplished today wasn't just business success," Caldwell continued. "You showed all of us what we become when we judge people by their potential rather than their position." Tasha touched the small pendant at her neck, her grandmother's final gift, and found her voice. "We all make assumptions sometimes, Robert. What matters is what we choose to do when we learn we were wrong." The Japanese executive spoke up from the screen. "This interaction demonstrates the character and values we hope to find in a partner company. Ms. Reynolds, you represent exactly the kind of leadership we want to work with." Morgan looked around the room at Caldwell's transformation, at the satisfied faces on the international screens, at Tasha's quiet dignity in this moment of recognition. Sometimes the most powerful endorsement comes not from a single authority figure, but from a moment when everyone in the room realizes they've witnessed something extraordinary. The international partners were reviewing final contract details, giving Morgan and Tasha a private moment in the conference room. Morgan poured 2 cups of coffee from the executive service cart, handing one to Tasha. The simple gesture felt significant, equal to equal, not boss to employee. "Can I ask you something personal?" Morgan settled into the chair beside her, not across from her. "Of course. You could have walked away from that ringing phone this morning. Most people would have. Why didn't you?" Tasha wrapped her hands around the warm coffee cup, gathering her thoughts. She touched the small pendant at her neck, worn silver with delicate Polish engravings. "My foster grandmother, Grandma Lena used to clean offices in downtown Chicago. Back in Poland, she was a university literature professor. But in America, she became invisible. Morgan listened without interrupting, sensing the weight of what she was sharing. Every night after her cleaning shifts, she'd come home and teach me languages, Polish first, then others. She'd say, "Tasha, in Poland, I taught students who respected knowledge. In America, I clean desks where important decisions happen, but nobody asks what I think." Tasha's voice grew softer, more personal. She used to tell me, "Someday someone will need exactly what you know. When that moment comes, don't let fear make you invisible like they made me invisible. Be ready." Morgan felt something shift in his chest. A recognition of all the invisible wisdom that moved through his company every day, unnoticed and unasked. She'd be incredibly proud today. She always said America was a place where invisible people could become visible. She just didn't know when. Tasha smiled, tears threatening. I think she'd say today was the day she was waiting for. What she gave you wasn't just languages, was it? No, she gave me permission to believe I had value even when the world told me otherwise. She taught me that preparation and opportunity aren't the same thing. But when they meet, Tasha gestured around the conference room where millions of dollars in partnerships had just been saved. When they meet, extraordinary things become possible. Morgan understood something profound at that moment. Every person walking through his company carried stories, skills, dreams, and wisdom he'd never bothered to discover. How many other Tashas were invisible in plain sight? Tasha, I want you to know what happened today changes how I see everything, not just you, everyone. That might be the most important deal we saved today. The most meaningful transformations don't just change one person's life. They change how everyone learns to see. All international partners were connected, Japan, China, Germany, with contract documents ready for final signatures. Morgan addressed the full video conference with cautious optimism, his voice carrying the weight of 3 years of negotiations. We have successfully resolved all cultural concerns and technical specifications. All parties are ready to execute the global partnership agreement. The room held its breath. Then chaos erupted. The conference room phone rang with urgent, panicked energy. Italian partners joining at the last possible moment, their voice cutting through the speaker like a fire alarm. Emergenza, emergency! The Italian executive's voice was sharp with crisis. We just discovered a catastrophic problem in the environmental compliance section of the partnership agreement. Tasha felt her stomach drop as the Italian executive continued in rapid, agitated Italian. Technical environmental terms mixed with legal concerns and cultural frustration about American business practices. What are they saying? Morgan asked, his face draining of color as he watched his deal potentially crumble. Before Tasha could translate, the other partners erupted simultaneously across multiple screens and phone connections. Japanese partners speaking rapidly in worried Japanese about environmental standards that might conflict with their strict sustainability commitments and corporate environmental reputation. Chinese executives conferring in urgent Mandarin about regulatory compliance issues that could threaten their government relationships and international standing. German representatives expressing sharp technical objections in precise German about carbon neutrality protocols that appeared to violate European Union environmental law. The conference room became a modern Tower of Babel, 4 languages, 6 countries, $50 million in partnerships, and complete multilingual chaos with seconds left on the deadline clock. Morgan stared at the cacophony of concerned international voices, understanding absolutely nothing, but recognizing disaster in every tone. I can't follow any of this. His voice cracked with desperation as he watched screens full of agitated faces. What's happening to our deal? Caldwell stood frozen in the doorway, watching his worst fears about relying on unqualified staff seemingly come true at the worst possible moment. This was the ultimate test. Everything Tasha had prepared for in 15 years of invisible studying had led to this exact moment. 4 languages, 6 countries, $50 million, complex environmental law, international regulatory compliance, and seconds to save everything. One woman who understood it all. Everyone, please, Tasha said firmly, her voice cutting through the multilingual panic with calm authority. Let me understand each country's specific concerns systematically. She transformed into a diplomatic conductor, orchestrating an international crisis symphony with precision that amazed everyone watching. "Mr. Rossi," she addressed the Italian team in perfect Italian with appropriate legal formality. "What specific environmental standard appears problematic in the American contract documentation?" The Italian response came fast and frantic, filled with technical legal terminology. "The renewable energy protocols in your partnership contract appear to fundamentally conflict with European Union environmental requirements. Our legal team discovered that the carbon neutrality standards don't match European environmental law definitions, Mr. Schmidt." Tasha switched seamlessly to technical German, addressing the environmental engineering concerns. "Are you seeing the same environmental compliance issues with EU regulations?" "Ja, exactly the same problem," came the urgent German response. "The American carbon neutrality definitions don't legally align with EU environmental regulations. This could create massive regulatory and legal problems for all European partners." "Nakamura-san," Tasha continued in formal Japanese with appropriate business honorifics, "how do these environmental concerns affect your company's partnership goals? If environmental standards aren't properly coordinated across all international jurisdictions, we cannot proceed with this partnership. Our company's reputation depends on authentic environmental responsibility that meets the highest global standards." Director Chen, she concluded in complex Mandarin business terminology, "What are your government's environmental concerns about this partnership? We must have absolute assurance that all environmental protocols meet the highest international standards without any regulatory uncertainty. Any environmental compliance questions threaten the entire multinational partnership structure." Tasha realized the crisis with crystal clarity while her mind processed 4 different legal and cultural frameworks simultaneously. "Mr. Morgan, there's been a critical translation error in the technical environmental documentation. The English term carbon neutral was incorrectly translated into multiple languages as carbon reduced, which represents completely different legal environmental standards in European and Asian environmental law." Morgan checked his watch frantically. "Can we fix this catastrophic error? I can explain the accurate translation to all partners simultaneously, but I need them to trust my environmental legal terminology expertise completely across 4 different regulatory systems. Do whatever it takes." Tasha took the deepest breath of her life and addressed all international partners simultaneously with perfect technical precision. In Italian, using precise EU legal terminology, the translation error affects terminology only, not actual environmental policy. We are genuinely carbon neutral by European Union standards, not merely carbon reduced. In German, with technical environmental engineering accuracy, our environmental standards exceed all European requirements. The legal translation used incorrect regulatory terminology. In Japanese, with proper environmental business protocol, environmental integrity remains our highest shared value. This correction confirms our mutual commitment to authentic international sustainability. In Mandarin, using appropriate governmental regulatory language, our environmental commitment exceeds what the translated documents indicated. We meet the highest international governmental standards. Profound silence stretched across all video screens and phone connections as legal teams processed the correction. "Mr. Rossi," Tasha asked in precise Italian legal terminology, "if carbon neutrality is officially confirmed by EU standards, not just carbon reduction, does this resolve your legal regulatory concerns?" "Si, assolutamente. If this is truly carbon neutral by European Union legal standards, we can proceed with complete confidence, Mr. Schmidt." "Does this environmental legal clarification meet all German regulatory requirements?" "Jawohl. This environmental commitment meets our standards perfectly and exceeds expectations." "Nakamura-san, does this environmental commitment align with your corporate values and government requirements?" "Yes, Ms. Reynolds' technical precision gives us complete confidence in this partnership." "Director Chen, are you satisfied with the environmental regulatory compliance standards?" "We trust Ms. Reynolds' expertise completely. The partnership can proceed. Partnership deadline reached. Every screen showed nodding faces. Every voice expressed enthusiastic agreement." "All international partners," Morgan announced with barely controlled emotion, "we have unanimous consensus." "Agreed," came the simultaneous response in Japanese, Mandarin, German, and Italian. Tasha collapsed back in her chair, physically and emotionally exhausted, but triumphant beyond imagination. Morgan stared at her with something approaching reverence. You just conducted the most complex international environmental legal crisis negotiation I've ever witnessed in 4 languages under extreme pressure, while managing 6 countries and different regulatory systems, and saved $50 million. Caldwell, who had watched the entire performance from the doorway, stepped forward with genuine awe and respect, replacing his earlier skepticism. That wasn't just translation or cultural consulting. That was international diplomatic and legal mastery at the highest level. Through the speakers and screens, satisfied international voices began enthusiastically planning implementation details for a partnership that moments earlier had seemed completely destroyed. Sometimes the difference between catastrophic failure and extraordinary success isn't luck or money or prestigious connections. Sometimes it's one person who prepared for 15 invisible years for seconds that changed everything. The hotel's grand ballroom buzzed with unprecedented energy. Word of the morning's miraculous partnership deal had spread through every department like wildfire. Morgan had called an emergency company-wide assembly, something that hadn't happened in the hotel's history. Executive staff, managers, housekeeping, maintenance, front desk, security, kitchen staff, every single employee packed into the elegant space normally reserved for wealthy guest celebrations. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over faces filled with curiosity and whispered speculation. What could possibly warrant stopping all operations for a mandatory meeting? Morgan approached the podium, his usual composed demeanor replaced by visible emotion. He looked out at the diverse crowd, people who'd worked side by side for years but rarely gathered as equals in the same room. Hours ago, Morgan began, his voice carrying through the sound system, we were about to lose the largest partnership in company history. $50 million, 6 countries, 3 years of negotiations, all crashing down because of cultural misunderstandings and translation errors. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. The housekeeping staff exchanged glances. The maintenance team looked confused. Most employees had no idea such high-stakes business even happened in their building. Right now, we're celebrating the successful closure of that partnership, the most complex international deal ever negotiated by this company. Scattered applause, but mostly puzzled faces. But we're not here to celebrate money, Morgan continued, his voice growing stronger. We're here to celebrate the person who saved us and what she taught us about who we really are as human beings. A spotlight operator, following Morgan's gesture, began searching the crowd. Tasha Reynolds, would you please come up here? The spotlight found her in the middle of the housekeeping section, still wearing her cleaning uniform, looking absolutely mortified by the attention. The crowd turned to stare. The same woman many of them had barely noticed for 15 years. The woman Caldwell had humiliated in the lobby just hours earlier, now being called to the stage during the most important company meeting in history. The applause started slowly, a few people from housekeeping who knew her personally. Then it spread as employees began connecting dots they'd never considered before. Front desk staff joined in. Kitchen workers clapped louder. Security guards whistled approval. By the time Tasha reached the stage, the entire ballroom was on their feet in thunderous applause that seemed to shake the crystal chandeliers. Tasha approached the microphone like she was walking toward her own execution. I'm really not comfortable with public speaking, she said, her voice barely audible. You just spoke to 6 countries in 4 languages and saved $50 million, Morgan replied with a warm smile. I think you can handle us. Warm, supportive laughter rippled through the crowd, not mocking, but encouraging. Morgan turned to face the employees. Tasha, I have several things for you that represent more than personal recognition. They represent what this company chooses to become. First, he produced an elegant crystal award engraved with gold lettering. Excellence in International Relations, Tasha Reynolds, for extraordinary service above and beyond all expectations. This award typically goes to diplomats and executives with decades of formal experience and advanced degrees. Today, it goes to someone who proved that excellence doesn't always come with impressive credentials or corner offices. The applause grew louder. Several employees wiped their eyes. Next, Morgan handed her a business card holder containing fresh cards, Director of International Cultural Relations, Tasha Reynolds, along with a salary that reflects your actual value to this company, not what we ignorantly assumed you were worth based on job titles and uniforms. The crowd erupted again. Someone from housekeeping shouted, "You go, girl!" Others laughed and cheered. Tasha accepted both items with trembling hands, touching the small pendant at her neck. Her grandmother's gift that had accompanied her through every invisible year. "I want to say something to everyone here," Tasha said, finding her voice as she looked out at faces that suddenly seemed truly interested in what she had to offer. The ballroom quieted to complete silence. 15 years ago, I took a job cleaning offices because I needed work to survive. I stayed because I found something precious here. Not just employment, but the opportunity to learn, to grow, to prepare for a moment I couldn't imagine coming. Her voice grew stronger, more confident with each word. To everyone who's ever felt invisible in their workplace, who's ever been judged by their job title instead of their potential, your moment will come. Keep learning. Keep growing. Keep believing in what you bring to this world, even when others can't see it yet. The emotional response was immediate and overwhelming. Housekeeping staff nodded through tears. Kitchen workers applauded. Front desk employees looked around at colleagues they'd never really seen before. Caldwell stepped forward from the side of the stage, approaching the microphone with visible humility that shocked everyone who knew his usual arrogance. "I need to say something publicly," Caldwell announced, his voice carrying none of its typical superiority. The crowd tensed, unsure what to expect. "This morning, I treated Tasha with disrespect and cruelty based on assumptions about her job title instead of knowledge of her abilities. I threw napkins at her feet and told her to know her place. Gasps and murmurs of disapproval rippled through the audience. Tasha handled my ignorance and prejudice with more grace, professionalism, and dignity than I deserved. She didn't just save a business deal today. She showed all of us what we become when we choose to see people's potential rather than just their positions." Caldwell turned directly toward Tasha. "You have every right to be angry with me. Instead, you've shown me who I can choose to be. Thank you." The crowd's response was immediate and emotional. Standing ovation, cheers. Several people shouted approval. Tasha stepped back to the microphone with tears in her eyes, but her voice steady. "We all make assumptions sometimes, Robert. What matters most is what we choose to do when we learn we were wrong. What matters is growing together." Morgan returned to the microphone for his final announcement. "Starting Monday, we're launching the Hidden Talent Initiative throughout our company. We're going to discover what extraordinary abilities our employees possess that we've never bothered to ask about." An employee from maintenance called out, "Miguel speaks 4 languages." Someone from housekeeping added, "Sarah has an engineering degree." Another voice, "David was a professor in Syria. Rosa knows accounting. James speaks sign language." The crowd began buzzing with excitement as employees started seeing each other completely differently. Morgan raised his hand for quiet. "This isn't just about discovering skills. It's about creating advancement pathways based on ability and potential, not just previous job history." Tasha stepped forward one final time. "My foster grandmother always told me I'd recognize my moment when it came. She was right about the timing. But the most beautiful part, this moment doesn't belong just to me. It belongs to everyone who's ready to be truly seen." The final standing ovation lasted nearly 5 minutes. Employees embraced. Departments that rarely interacted began conversations. The entire company culture shifted in real time. Recognition isn't just about one person's success. It's about everyone realizing what becomes possible when assumptions dissolve and human potential is finally visible. The brass nameplate on the office door read, "International Cultural Relations Department, Tasha Reynolds, Director." Inside, sunlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Awards lined the walls, not just Tasha's, but recognition for the entire Hidden Talent Initiative that had transformed workplaces across America. The Lakeside Grand Hotel had become something unprecedented, the most culturally diverse and inclusive workplace in the region. International business leaders flew in specifically to study their model. Harvard Business School featured them in case studies. The stock price had doubled, but the real transformation was human. Tasha sat at her conference table training a group of 12 new multilingual cultural liaisons, former housekeepers, maintenance staff, and security guards who'd been discovered through the Hidden Talent Initiative. Miguel from maintenance was now learning advanced business Portuguese. Sarah from housekeeping was applying her engineering background to sustainability consulting. David, the former Syrian professor, was leading academic partnerships. Cultural translation isn't just about language, Tasha explained to her eager trainees. It's about understanding what each person needs to feel respected, heard, and valued. That's what transforms one-time transactions into lifelong partnerships. A soft knock interrupted the training session. Miguel peered through the doorway, no longer wearing a maintenance uniform, but professional attire that matched his new role as Latin American cultural specialist. "Miss Reynolds, I hope you don't mind the interruption, but I wanted to ask you something." "Of course, Miguel, come in." He entered hesitantly, still adjusting to being welcomed into spaces that once felt forbidden. "I keep thinking about what you said about preparing for opportunities we can't see coming. My younger sister just started community college, but she's working nights cleaning offices to pay for classes. She speaks 3 languages but thinks they're not valuable because nobody at her work ever asks." Tasha smiled with recognition and warmth. "What would you tell her?" "The same thing my foster grandmother told me. Keep learning, keep growing. Your moment will come when you're ready for it." Miguel nodded thoughtfully. "She wants to study international relations, but she doesn't think people like us belong in that world. People like us belong everywhere. We're willing to prepare ourselves to contribute. Tell her to call me." After Miguel left, Tasha walked to her window, looking down at the hotel lobby where her journey had begun with scattered napkins and public humiliation. Now she watched employees from every department greeting each other by name in multiple languages with genuine respect. Her phone buzzed with a text from Morgan. "Forbes wants to interview you about the Hidden Talent Initiative spreading to 500+ companies nationwide. Are you available this afternoon?" She typed back, "Ready when they are." But the most meaningful moment came an hour later when Maria, the current evening custodian, knocked on her door. "Miss Reynolds, thank you for the conversation groups you started. I've been practicing my English business terms like you suggested. How's it going, Maria?" "Good. And I wanted to tell you something. Yesterday I overheard Mr. Caldwell on a call with Italian partners. When they started speaking Italian, he looked confused, so I helped translate. He thanked me afterward and asked about my background." Tasha's heart swelled with pride and possibility. "Your moment is coming, Maria. Keep preparing." As the day ended, Tasha touched the pendant at her neck, Grandma Lena's gift that had witnessed every step of this transformation. Here's what she'd learned. The most extraordinary people are often hiding in the most ordinary places, waiting for someone to ask the right questions instead of making assumptions. So here's the question for you. Who are the invisible people in your world right now? The cashier who speaks languages you've never asked about? The security guard with skills you've never explored? The person whose story you know by job title but not by potential? This week, start one real conversation. Learn one person's name and background. Ask one question about someone's abilities instead of assuming their limitations. You might discover that the person who can solve your biggest problem, change your perspective, or save your most important project has been right there all along, waiting for someone to simply see them. The Hidden Talent Initiative now operates in over 500 companies across America, proving that extraordinary ability exists everywhere when we choose to look beyond job descriptions and uniforms. Tasha Reynolds answered one foreign phone call and changed everything. But the real call is to all of us, to see potential where others see positions, to find brilliance where others expect ordinary, and to remember that the most important person in any room might be the one everyone else has stopped noticing. The next time opportunity calls, remember, you never know who's ready to save the day. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe to Black Soul Stories for more stories that restore faith in human potential. And tell us in the comments who's the most underestimated person in your life. Sometimes the most powerful lessons in life don't arrive wrapped in diplomas or delivered from a stage. They show up wearing a cleaning uniform, pushing a cart down a quiet hallway, and carrying years of invisible preparation in their heart. Tasha Reynolds taught us that true value is rarely announced by titles, resumes, or corner offices. It often whispers through quiet persistence, late-night study sessions, and the deep kindness of someone who refused to let the world make her invisible. Her story reminds us that every person we pass without a second glance might be carrying extraordinary gifts. Languages they speak fluently, wisdom they've quietly gathered, dreams they've nurtured in silence. The greatest tragedy isn't missing a $50 million deal. It's missing the human potential standing right in front of us every single day. When we choose to see beyond uniforms and job descriptions, we don't just unlock opportunity, we unlock dignity, respect, and the kind of transformation that changes entire companies and even entire lives. Grandma Lena's words echo long after the applause fades. Don't let fear make you invisible. So today, look around your own world with new eyes. Who is the person you've stopped noticing? What hidden brilliance might be waiting for someone brave enough to ask the right question? If Tasha's journey touched something deep inside you, please share this story with someone who needs to hear it. Drop a comment below and tell us, who is the most underestimated person in your life right now, and what incredible talent do you suspect they're hiding? And if stories like this restore your faith in human potential, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss the next powerful reminder that extraordinary lives are often hidden in ordinary places. Your support helps more hearts discover their worth. Thank you for being here.